Hello, welcome to join our MCS and COXO free public webinar. This is and this time we are honored to have invited Dr. Wael Sadek from Egypt to share with us his topic broken instrument clinical decision making in English language. And now let me introduce to you Dr. Wael. He has a Bachelor of Surgical Dentistry in Shams University, Egypt, 2006. Silver member at Excellence in Endodontics Group. Former board member of 3D Cleaning Project Group. Endodontic Course Director at Dental Gallery professional member of Global Outreach Medical and Health Association, GOMA, developer of negative pressure irrigation device, Safe Clean, developer of a magnification device, CamScope. And now let me introduce to you the sponsor for this webinar, Mr. Sinai Company for Supplies, Coxo Egyptian Sole Agent, more than our product. Mr. Sinai for dental supplies. We are found in 1909, agent for Coxo in Egypt since 2010, sole agent for Coxo handpiece since 2019. Our products, which is Endomotor line, C-Smart Pro, C-Smart Mini Echo, and C-Smart Mini EP. Here's the device, C-Smart Pro. And this is C-Smart Mini AB, C-Smart Mini. And finally, the fine C-Smart iPad and Soko Nightai files, Soko Pro and retreatment and glass and one for duration system, which are C-Fill and C-Fill Mini, the new one. This is C-Fill Mini G-Type and the B-Type pen. And now with handpiece line for Coxo, the high speed, the lead generator, and even low speed. The dental motor, C-Puma and the new C-Puma Master. The implant motor, C-Sailor and the LED Touch C-Sailor Pro. The Light Cure line, which are Light Cure Daily and the new Light Cure Nano and Caries Detector, which can be worked as a cure and caries detector type. And the bleaching line, C-Bite, the unit mount and the mobile device. Microscope, C-Clear 2. And now, thank you. And now, back. I would like to announce, by the way, every time during our Coxo free public webinar, we will prepare a certificate for those who join our course, which will be part of the qualifications for your career. Now let me introduce how to get certificate. The first step, follow and like Coxo page on Facebook. The second step, you have to leave your comment or question below. In the end of the live video for the course, we will share the form link to the comments below the live video. Please open the link and fill the form and submit, apply for the certificate. Above 3 steps all done. In 5 days, you will receive PDF format certificate in your email. Please note, the form application can be filled only one time and will be available for only 5 hours after the lecture. 5 hours later, the application channel will be closed. After that time, we will not accept any application possible after the webinar. Second note will be the form cannot be modified, so please make sure the information you left are correct. And this is the final shape for the COXO certificate you will get. Okay, now we through this webinar, we are preparing for two. I'd like to remind you we have two prizes. The first prize will be for the best question that will be selected by Dr. Wael. So you have to leave your question below the live video, and then Dr. Wael will answer your question, and we will pick up the best one. This person will his question will get 3 sets of Soco Pro Endo files. And we have another prize that will be chosen by the lucky draw. You need to comment on the video during the live. Then you can have a chance to get our special gift. We will make a lucky draw tomorrow and post it on MCS page and COXO Facebook page. The lucky one also can get 3 sets of Soco Pro Endo files. And now let me welcome Dr. Wael. Hello, Dr. Wael.
Hello, Mr. Ahmed. How are you?
How are you? So we are ready now to start our course, and we would like to thank you for taking your precious time to share with us your excellent experience about this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. My pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, you have the mic
let's
now.
Start. Okay, the screen is on. Okay, the slide is on.
Yes.
Okay, you can see my slide. Okay.
Yes.
Welcome everyone.
It's already on. Yes.
Okay. Welcome everyone. In the next slide, I want to thank COXO for this opportunity and Master Sina Company in Egypt for this opportunity to be with you today. We'll talk about the broken instrument. The decision making. Look, for broken instrument, the only thing that makes you don't break a file or break an instrument inside root canal is that you don't do root canal. You will break and you will break. You broke an instrument, and you will break an instrument in the future. That's almost unavoidable, but can be to minimum, and you have to learn how to handle it. So we will discuss the common cause for an instrument separation. And of course, if you know the cause of an instrument separation, don't do it, then you will avoid an instrument separation. Let's start with the first cause, inadequate access. That's in my opinion, that's the most common cause of an instrument separation that you don't see. You separate an instrument and you don't see that the problem in the access. My advice to you is to test your access. When you can say I'm finished with my access and I will go to the next step, which is working letter determination or shaping. When you can say that, when you can say that you finish your access, when you achieve three criteria of access cavity. One is to contain the irrigant. You have to make your access cavity class 1, closed to enclose and to contain your irrigant. The second criteria is to find all the main canal, and to have a good space to look for extra canals. And the third criteria, which is most important, is to make a safe access for instrumentation. A safe instrumentation. The access must provide a safe path for instrumentation. So how you can say that my access have a safe path for my instrument, for my files to go inside root canal? You bring the orifice opener. Orifice opener is the biggest, the biggest and the shortest file in any rotary system. It's the shortest and the biggest file, and you just put it inside the orifice of the canal, 2 to 3 millimeter inside the orifice. And you have to check not the orifice, you check the relation between your orifice opener and the access cavity wall. If there is a friction between orifice opener and access cavity, you have to relieve this friction. You have to make the orifice opener go inside the root canal, the orifice, without any friction with the with the access cavity walls. If there is no friction with the orifice opener with the access cavity walls, then there is no file will have friction because it's the biggest one. If the biggest one have no friction with your access cavity wall, then no file will have this friction, and you will have a safe and clear path for your instrumentation. So number one is inadequate access cavity preparation. Absence of glide path, of course. For me, glide path is like a railway, and the rotor is like the train. If you don't have a good railway, the train will crash. You have to have a good glide path. My glide path is minimum 10K file until having shaping the canal with 10K file until super loose, and then 15K file until super loose. That's a good glide path in most of the cases. Second, overuse of the instrument. Look, now I am a 2006 graduation. We don't have the luxury that we have nowadays of having a good quality and low price and affordable price files that allow us to use it less than in the past, when we have just also a good quality files, but it was expensive. We have to use it many times to make it a cost-effective treatment for us. But now you have a good quality files, because the Chinese files is coming into the market with good quality product and with affordable prices. So now I don't think you have to overuse your instrument. A kit with, I think, $5 or $10, you can use it for 2-3 times, 2-3 tooth. Maybe if you have a good price for your endo, you can use it single use. I think overuse now is some sort of negligence because of the affordable prices of the files. You don't have to overuse it a lot. Also, you have to inspect your instrument even with single use. Always, if you feel that you push the file too much, or that the canal is too tight, or there is a sharp curvature, you have when you have this situations, you have always to bring your file outside the canal and inspect it for two things: shiny part and discontinuity. Shiny part, that if the file has a part that gives a shine with the light, or a discontinuity in the pattern of the file. You have to discard the file this if you see it in during your work, or even after sterilization. Of course, don't push the file. That's what I say, and that's what really makes me angry when I saw in my courses some students push the file like they force the file to go to the apex. It will not go by force. What is the force I should push the file with is, in my opinion, just a pencil grip pressure. A pencil grip pressure, which means the type of the amount of pressure that you use when you write down with a pencil without breaking the tip. So that's how little you have to push your instrument. If you feel resistant, just irrigate, recapitulate, and re-irrigate. But pushing an instrument too much inside the root canal will accumulate more debris and will put more pressure on the tip, which will expose your file to torsional fatigue. Look, my recommendation in curved canal, one of my rules in curved canal, more than 45 degree, I use my end file is 2504. So don't use large instrument in the canal, inside the canal. Even from my clinical experience, not more. If the curvature is more than 45 degree, I will end my master epic file is 2504. Using larger instrument in curvature expose you to cyclic fatigue. And by the way, I have the case. We will see it in this webinar, that I separate an instrument because I use large file in curved canals. We'll see this case. It was very interesting. Rotational speed, you have to be commit to the manufacturer recommendation about the speed and torque. Canal curvature, you have to respect the canal curvature. You have to have good glide path. You have to do a coronal flaring above the angle of the curvature to decrease the stress on the file beyond the curvature. Of course, the technique of your shaping and the design of the instrument have a good impact, not so much. I think what really matters is it's your skill and how you deal with the instrument. Of course, torque, you have to follow the manufacturer settings, and type of night-eye alloy used. The difference between the austenitic type and the metastatic types. Don't use austenitic type in curved canals like retreatment files. I think the only austenitic phase nickel titanium alloy in the market is the retreatment files. I don't recommend using retreatment file in the curved canals. Just use it in the straight part, and you can use in the straight part, even in retreatment, even if you need to retreat or to remove gataberka, just use it in the straight part and use the normal shaping file in the curved part. Of course, that's a very controversial subject and very long subject to talk with, but most of the researchers said that reciprocation motions have less potential to separate an instrument than continuous rotation motion. I have experienced some reciprocation with reciproc. It's separate. It's not invincible to separation, but it's separate in a less rate than continuous rotation files. But it still have separation, and it still need a technique and all that what we talked about earlier. You have to have adequate access. You have to have glide path. You have not to overuse it. So it's as I said before, it's all about your technique. Now, if you separate a file, you have to tell the patient. That's a medical legal aspect. Look, file separation is not negligence. It's not something wrong. It's just a common complication of a treatment. So if you separate a file, you don't have any medical legal issues. It's just a common complication. I think in my country and in every the law, I think it's applied to all countries of the world that file separation is a common complication. It's not your fault. Yeah, of course, it might be for something you did wrong, but it's common to happen. It's not a negligence. It's not like not using rubber dam, or just or it's not like using Pulpotec. No, it's not a totally wrong thing. It's a common complication of root canal treatment. So in the file separation itself, it's not a medical legal issue. It's when it's a medical legal issue when the tooth is not in some countries don't allow GPs to work in molars. So that's a medical legal issue. If you GP and you're not allowed to work in molars and you work in molars, that's without even breaking the instrument, it's a medical legal issue. And or if you don't tell the patient, you have to tell the patient that the instrument separated and we have a problem and we will deal with it. Okay, so it's not a medical legal issue by itself. So let's know how we deal with broken instrument. There is 4 ways to deal with broken instruments. 1, bypass. I have if I can share a link about my webinar about my bypass technique, which is called the file sequence cycling. It's a very interesting technique and very good. Retrieve, of course, so to remove the broken instrument. Of course, retrieve, I mean by non-surgical retrieval, or surgical retrieval by surgery, or the damned choice. That will be the end of our lecture. We'll talk about the damned choice. But let's talk about retrieve. Or either non-surgical or surgical. Surgery is an option. You don't have to neglect. And it's, in my opinion, with all my surgeries I did, it's very easier and more predictable option, but it's the more aggressive option, and it's the less option loved by the patient. The patient always said, I want you to avoid surgery by any cost. But it's, for me, it's an easier and more predictable way. Let's see this case. A patient came to me. He has a previous root canal treatment. Of course, it's not very good root canal treatment. And my fellow colleague referred this case to me to retrieve the broken instrument. Most of the broken instrument is inside the root canal, about 2 millimeters outside the bone. It's not. It's the canal is straight. It's a straightforward case, and I've done even worse than this, and it's I think it's okay. I removed the gataperca, and then I insert my ET25, an ultrasonic tip to retrieve, and I couldn't reach the instrument. This canine was about 28 millimeters in length. My instrument just reached just, I think, I think the first 1 millimeter or 1.5 millimeter at its maximum length. So I couldn't reach the instrument. Even if I could reach the instrument, the first 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters of the instrument, I was working blindly, because the head of the I couldn't see inside the canal with this depth. So I tried to move the instrument for I think 45 minutes. I didn't get any chance. I was working blindly, and that's very wrong in retrieval. You have to see what you do. Working with ultrasonic inside root canal is very tricky, and it could easily lead to perforation or even worse. So I tried my best, but I couldn't even reach the 1 millimeter of the instrument to disengage the instrument. So I told the patient that we have to go for surgery. Though, what to do now to make the surgery easier? What to do is to fill the canal. I clean shaped this part of the canal. I put MTA at the apical part, and then backfill with GP, so I can make it easier at surgery. When I open, expose the root, then I cut the half that contains the file. When I cut it, I don't need for retrograde filling. I'm already doing the filling with MTA 2 days ago, orthograde via the canal, so I don't need. What I did is during surgery is just expose the root, cut the part, and then close the flap. And this is the final image. And so surgery is always an option, and sometimes it's the only option or the easier option. So let's do the retrieval. How we retrieve. Accessibility and visibility. That's what you have to see before you get the decision of retrieval. Accessibility. The mouse opening is good. So I can insert my instrument freely? I can isolate this part of this tooth? All this for accessibility and visibility. Could I see this instrument? Because any instrument beyond the curvature you can see. Any instrument beyond the curvature you can't, even with coronal flaring or with canal preparation very wide, you can see, and if it's beyond or apical to the angle of the curvature, so your choice will be bypass or surgery. So accessibility and visibility is very important. The retrieval process is very stressful. You have to make it as comfortable as possible, because it's by itself it's very stressful. So the broken instrument technique, most of the techniques is about ultrasonic retrieval or grasping mechanism. Both ultrasonic retrieval or grasping mechanisms need canal preparation. So if you're gonna use only the ultrasonic to retrieve the instrument, or you're gonna use a grasping mechanism, you have to prepare the canal for both. You have to prepare the canal for both. And the canal preparation is almost the same. Let's see some special special situations that you can use ultrasonic retrieval without canal preparation. It's a very recent case for me. It's about I broke what called a spring file. A spring file, it's types of file that has a spring at its top beyond the handle. This spring serves as a cushion to absorb stresses, and if the file has a lot of stress, it will separate at the spring, like the gates gliding at the top of the file. Look here, you can look here. I start my access cavity, exposure, patient feeling some pain, intrapulpal anesthesia, complete deroofing, get my working length with apex educator, and then I use a spring file 2004. And when I push the spring file, honestly I push it intentionally to test the mechanism, and actually separate it. When I push it, I push really hard to reach torsional failure, and it's separate. It's separate as it said at the spring. So I looked at it. It's separate at the spring as it said. So I think it's safe. But that's the mechanism. This is the spring at the top of the file. When it reaches torsional limits, it's separate there. What I did is I used ultrasonic, the tip for scaling, to remove the file like post. You can do this with any file if you have enough a part of the file coming out from the orifices. If the same mechanism applies to like the post, like the metal post, you remove the metal post, all you need is 2 to 3 millimeter outside the orifice and a space to work with the ultrasonic tip, and then you can unwind the file and bring it out just with ultrasonic, with even not special tip. It's just a scaling tip, as you do with post. As you can see here, I just go counterclockwise, and the file just unwind and came out. It was very easy, no preparation, nothing. It was about 2-3 seconds. So I like the idea, and that I could retrieve the file very easily. Okay, complete the shaping of the case, and the case was done as usual normally. Okay, so that's was retrieval without any preparation. The usual canal preparation is, first step is to establish a straight line radicular axis to the instrument. It's used by gates gliding. Gates gliding 2, 3. In wider canals I use gates gliding number 4 until the broken instrument. That's how you have a straight line axis. Then 1, 2, 3, even 4. Then you create a platform. Look, the platform is with modified gates gliding. What you do is to cut the gates gliding at the center of its blade, and like this shape, and it will gives you as like the inverted cone stone, the inverted cone bird. It's to make a flat surface, a flat or plate form around the broken instruments that then you can work with ultrasonic. Okay, so first step is straight line axis using gates gliding to have a straight line and vision of the broken instrument. Then using a modified gates gliding to establish a platform, like a space. You create a space around the broken instrument at the level of the broken instrument. After that, after you creating the platform, now you can go for ultrasonic preparation. What ultrasonic preparation means, if the canal is less than 4.5 millimeter, you can use you have a good chance that the canal could get retrieved with only ultrasonic. If the broken instrument is more than 4.5 millimeter in length, then the agrasmic mechanism will be faster and safer and less and more conservative for dentine. Because if the broken instrument is more than 4.5 millimeter, and this is all Dr. Yoshi's way. This man, I love this man. If you know Dr. Yoshi Taruchi, I met him several times. I attend every event he had in Egypt, and I think it was 3 events. I believe in his technique, and he's believing in a conservative way for retrieval. So what he did with his rule, what his way is, if the broken instrument is more than 4.5 millimeters, so agrasmic mechanism will be faster and more conservative for dentine. If less than 4.5 millimeter in length, then it's possible to get it out with only ultrasonics. What Dr. Yoshi said, if you're gonna go with ultrasonic, that's our first way to discuss now. Is we decide to go for ultrasonic, for complete ultrasonic retrieval. You have to sharpen your instrument. Your instrument have to be sharp. He used, I think, a 20.1 or 20.2 an instrument at taper. It's very thin. It's very thin. That gives you more visual, more visibility, and it's cut. Its thinning makes the ultrasonic vibrate more and cut sharper and deeper and faster. But it has one drawback, that it's very weak. You have to be limited to a certain power in ultrasonic not to break the instrument. If the retrieval instrument breaks, it's usually not that hard to retrieve, because it's not engaged like the file and in dentine. And so just with another ultrasonic tip, you can just push it up, or even with irrigation, it comes out. So you have to sharpen your katana. Katana means sword in Japanese. You have to sharpen your katana. Then what you need to do is to go counterclockwise 180 degree at the inner curve, or the inner wall of the canal to 2 to 3 millimeter, or at least the third of the canal length, so you can disengage the instrument from the dentine. So sharpen your katana. Whatever, first canal preparation, straight line access with gates gliding, then plate form with modified gates gliding, sharp katana, go 180 degree around the instrument in the inner wall, deep to 2 to 3 millimeters at the inner wall. Okay, low power setting to prevent a breakage of the tip of your retrieval tip. Now, after this preparation, you prepare you remove the dentine 180 degree, just half a circle, 180 degree around at the inner wall around the instrument. That will disengage most of the instrument less than 4.5 millimeter in length. What is the sign of this engagement? The sign of this engagement is 2 signs. First, it will be flexing. You have to after you cut a little bit of dentin, you have to irrigate and dry and test the movement of the instrument. You remove some dentin 180 degree, half a circle around the instrument, 2 to 3 millimeter in depth. After that, you're gonna test the instrument by DG60, or even better is a hand spreader size 20 or 25. There's a hand spreader it's like a very sharp and thin probe that you can insert into canal, and you can see that you just push the instrument, the broken instrument, inside the canal and see what if it moves. The first, it will not move. You need to remove more dentine. Then it will flex. What meaning of flexing? Flexing means that you push the instrument with the probe or with the hand spreader, as I said. When you push it, it moves, but when you release the pressure, it gets back to its original position. So you push the instrument, it moves, but when you release the pressure, it gets back to its original position, and that's called flexing. That's still not enough to retrieve. You have to remove more dentin, half a circle, 180 degree, 2 to 3 millimeter depth, or 1/3 of the instrument length. Then you test the movement. If the instrument moves in its from its position, and when you release the pressure, it stays in its new position, that's called dancing. Dancing means you move the instrument and it keeps its new position. When you reach this movement, dancing movement, now you have the last step of an instrument, ultrasonic canal retrieval, ultrasonic broken instrument retrieval, which is attempt to retrieve. The final stage is called attempt to retrieve. What is attempt to retrieve? Is to place your retrieval tip at the inner wall and fill the canal with ADTA, olive oil, a lot of liquids used, and then put your ultrasonic at the highest power you have, and then push and work with ultrasonic 3, 5, maximum 10 seconds, and then the instrument will pop up. Let's see an example for that. So, starting with a retriever by attempting to retrieve, fill the canal with mineral oils, olive oil, EDTA, the maximum power, 10 seconds, and then the magic will happen. Let's see this case. Now let's see this instrument. It's almost about 5 millimeter. I don't have a grabbing mechanism, so I will take my chances. If the instrument is more than 4.5 millimeter, it's possible to have an ultrasonic retrieval. You might not need a grabbing mechanism, but it will take much time, and we will remove more dentin. What I have here, I make a customized tip to make it thinner. I use this tip. Look, this is a hand spreader. I remove the plastic part, the blue plastic part here. I move it, and I put it in this tip. This tip it's an exchangeable tip. You can remove this, unscrew this part, and then put whatever you want. You want to do to put a file, to put a spreader, whatever you want to do here, and then look, it's more thinner than the original ET25. Look how thin it is. It's 32 tipper 2, and this is I think 40 or 25 tipper 4. I think so. I feel that this tip is much thinner, so I use it in retrieval. I dry the canal. I'm trying to see the broken instrument. That this was done after preparation. You can see how the platform is now a space around the broken instrument. That's the hand spreader I told you about. I test the movement. That of course the instrument don't have any movement. Now I work my way with my ultrasonic. Okay, I try to keep my cutting at the inner wall. Every time I remove some dentin, I irrigate with EDT. I activate, so I don't accumulate with the debris. It will block my vision, and it will not make the file, the testing of the movement file is genuine. Look, you can see now I concentrate my removal at the inner wall alongside with the at the forcation side. Now look, when you're troughing, you still, even you see everything, but you feel the file movement. Then while I'm troughing, I felt the movement of the file, so I'm now trying to test it. Now I think it's it's not very dancing. I think it still needs more removal. Okay, now I think it's reached the dancing. Look how it's reached the dancing side. Look, I want you to experience the dancing. What is it? Look at the position of the broken instrument. When I push it, it go to a new position and hold this new position. That means it's dancing. Now what I will do is the last step is the attempt to retrieve. I will fill the canal with EDTA, put the irrigant, put the retrieval tip in the inner wall, and think pushing cycles for 10 as maximum 10 seconds. Look how powerful the ultrasonic, because it's at its maximum. Now I can see the broken instrument retrieved here, coming out. Can do microsuction, and it's out. Although it's very long, ultrasonic was more than enough to retrieve it. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 millimeter in length. And look how it was very conservative. You can see how much dentine has lost. Almost no dentine had lost in this retrieval. See another case here. Look at this. This case was although it was a small file here, it was a retreatment case, but it's still this you can know that this file broke from cyclic fatigue, as it's the angle of the curvature here at the angle. So I hope I could see the tip of the file, because that's what the challenge is, so I can see the tip of the file without removing much dentine. Now we will go for canal preparation, gates gliding 2 and 3. The root was very thin, so I didn't go much than 3, and then modified gates gliding 3 to create a platform. So I go with 2, 3 for straight line axis, and then we'll go with modified 3 for platform. Then irrigate and evacuate debris. It's very important to evacuate debris so you can have a much clearer view. Then I go for microsuction to dryness, so I can see now. Now I can see the shiny part of the instrument. Now I go with picking motion at the inner side with a half a circle motion, 180 degree motion at the inner wall. Most of the by experience, you will not need to see much. You just need to put your tip at the inner wall and start to trough. You don't need to see. You can feel it, and you know where your tip is. So you didn't even need to see. But this is by experience. I saw the file. I saw where I put my tip. Now we choke movement. After I remove, then I remove some dentine, some irrigate, and then microsuction, so I can see again. Then I start. Look how this movement. Look how I try to move the instrument, move the broken file, and it's moving, and it keeps its new position, so it's dancing. Now the attempt to retrieve. This time I use baby oil. Baby oil, what's the difference between baby oil and EDTA? Baby oil is too thick. It will prevent the instrument from jumping to other canals if you have open, because it's very thick, as you can see. Now when I do an attempt to retrieve, I feel the tip hitting the file, then it disappears. This feeling of hitting the file disappears. So I do 2 or 3 pushes while the file is already retrieved. But look, I can see it when I lost the feeling of the file. Look, it stick to the tip here because its baby oil is very thick. That's why I know I retrieved it, because the feeling of pushing a file, it disappeared because it's coming out. And you can see here after obturation how I remove a little bit of dentine here, and of course I reach the end of the canal. Now let's see the grasping mechanism. The grasping mechanism here, we can use it at you need a straight line axis also, you need a plate form, and this time you need 360-degree preparation around the file, 1 to 3 millimeter exposure. With ultrasonic retrieval, the ultrasonic pushing power and sliding motion of the instrument along the outer wall, you push from inner wall, and then the instrument slide at the outer wall and coming out. This is the essence of this technique. But when grabbing mechanism, you have to expose 2 to 3 millimeter of the instrument, but in 360-degree all around the instrument. That's why ultrasonic is more conservative, because it's removed less dentine. But in what's about the grabbing mechanism, that you can, in some techniques, and we'll see, you may reach flexing. You don't need to reach dancing. In most of the cases, you can grab, and using the grabbing power to remove the dentine without even reaching a dancing or even flexing movement. Just expose, catch, and pull. But you have to expose 2 to 3 millimeter minimum, and it have to be all around the instrument. Let's see the techniques used is file with tube. File with tube, you can do it manually or with kits like CFR1 by Coxo. We'll talk about it. And then resin with tube, and then the loop device. Let's see an example for file with tube. Let's see this case. A colleague sent me this case. I think it was a canine, a broken 15K file in canine. Yeah, it was very long, very engaging in the root, and that's what I told you about. He tried to retrieve it to prepare the canal blindly. He's almost will perforate the canal. Look how deep he came into dentine. So when he saw this in X-ray, he referred the case, and what I did is I prepared, I think, 4 millimeter of the around the file. The canal was wide. The only engaging part was the apical part. It was free around the broken file. So look, it was very free. So what I did is I prepare a tube on set at chair side. While the patient is lying down on the chair, I prepare my tube at the moment. Look at how I did it. Look, it's very simple. You bring a needle, the needle of your syringe. I prefer the needle of 5 centimeter syringe or 10 centimeter syringe, because it's have less gauge. When you have less gauge, you have a bigger needle. Yeah. The 27 gauge is bigger than 30. The gauge 30. The gauge 27 is bigger than gauge 30. So I use in this case I used the needle of a 5 centimeter syringe. Look at it. I bring the needle. I bend it almost 90 degree. Almost 90 degree. I think 100 degree. And then I cut a hole just beyond the angle of the bending, just beyond the bend, at the needle end, at the tip end. Just I make a hole here. Then I remove the bevel. You have to remove the bevel, make the tip straight and even, flat. This is because it's an injection needle, so it must have a bevel. So you remove the bevel. Now I insert a 10K file in the hole I made at the bend and to check patency. Then what I do is I check that there is a 360-degree space around the file. Then I push the needle, I push the file inside the needle. Look, I push the needle to make the file go inside the needle. I push it, and I'm making sure that the file goes as much as possible inside the needle. Then after that, after I'm sure that the file goes as much as possible inside the needle, I push the biggest file which can go to this hole and reach the tip of the needle. In this case, it was 15 hand files, 15K file. I push it inside the hole. What happens is while the broken instrument head or tip inside the needle, the 15K file go and just engage the broken file between the needle wall and the 15K file. That's making a very good grip. Look, now I make it like I extract the tooth and then pull down, the file go very easily. This mechanism is called file in tube. Now it may take a lot of preparation, a lot of practice. I broke a lot of needles to just make it from the first attempt. Look, when you release the file, the file here is okay, and that's after I remove the file. Now you can do this much easily and more predictably with the COXO CFR1. Let's see the introduction video. What you need to do is to do a coronal flare. You have with the kit of the COXO CFR1, you have 3 tips with different sizes. A small tip with 0.8, and then 0.9, and then 0.11 to engage to engage small files, then medium files, and then large files. And each tip has the file that make the coronal our straight line path, straight line path for the grabbing tip. This one is the file for, I think it's about 80. Now you do a straight line access to it. You prepare until the broken instrument with the file. Every tip has its instrument, three rows inside the box. First is the file, then the circumcision drill, and this is work counterclockwise with your rotary instrument, counterclockwise, and this to create a plate form around the instrument. It's work like the modified gates. It makes a platform after you make a straight line for the instrument, for this platform instrument or circumferential instrument with the file that we used earlier. That's create a platform around the instrument. After this, they do a trifine bear. Trifine bear, that's a bear or a sleeve, that's a bear that is hollow from the inside. So it's work with counterclockwise also. So when it cuts the 2 millimeter around the file, and the file goes inside the hollow part. So you don't even need to use ultrasonic. The sleeve bear will cut around 360 degree around the file. Also make it go counterclockwise will make some unscrewing of the instrument. Now you have your circumferential space. You insert the file, and this is the mechanism of file in tube. There is a cylinder go inside the hole and then grab the file. What you notice here that we don't need to go for flexing or dancing. You just go straight line axis, plate form, terfine burr or sleeve burr for 2 to 3 millimeter around the file, then go and grab it. I think it may take much dentine off the canal. You need a straight line access to canal, but it's much easier and it doesn't take any work with ultrasonic. I think it's very promising tool. Now, still with the tube, there is a resinous tube. A resinous tube, let's see this case. This case I has, look how this was a long files. That's, I don't know what this technique called, but this dentist brilliantly break and etch a 35 or 40 etch file hand instrument intentionally. He broke, he engaged it in the canal and then remove the plastic handles and put amalgam. It's called the file post technique. I don't know, but the patient and surprisingly, patient came to for complaining about food impaction, nothing else. So I did what's right, and I removed the distal 2 files, and then I tried to remove the 1 mesial file. So what is here is that the file was the part that comes from the orifice was too small. It was 2 millimeter, I think, or 1.5 millimeter. I couldn't grab it with the needle holder like I did with the other files, and the distal more. I grabbed them with needle holder because there was a lot of file exposing above the orifice. But here I couldn't not grab it. So what this is with the grabbing mechanism, it will go out very easily. What I did is I bring a flowable composite tip, a big flowable composite tip, and I measure the size of it. It's fit to the file. What I did is I bring a resin cement, a dual cure resin cement, and fill the tip with the dual cure resin cement, and then push the tip inside. Push the file inside the tip like this. Wait for 5 minutes for the cement to set, and then just pull it. This is what's called resin in tube. So I pre-fit the tube. It's fitting. I filled it with dual cure resin composite, dual cure resin cement, and then push the tip inside the file and wait for the cement to set, and then just pull it, and it came out. The resin was very hard that I couldn't take out the file from the tube. It was very sticky, and then I complete the case. That's what's called resin in tube. It was very hard case, yeah, for the other two. And the last grabbing mechanism with us is the loop device. The loop device. Simply, it's a ligature wire that is put in pairs inside a needle, and there is a mechanism that makes this loop get smaller when you engage the file. It's a very simple technique. It's very effective, very conservative. You don't need to prepare a lot of. You might not need even a plate form, but it's not that hard. You need really a dancing file, because if the file is not moving or in flexing mode, the ligature wire will break, will cut. That's what, and the tip is very expensive. I think if you cut a ligature wire, it's done. The tip is gone. So you need to reach at least dancing, a good dancing movement. You need to reach, with my experience with this, I have this device, I have the loop device also, but you have to reach a good level of movement so you can grab this this file. So that's, I think, the drawback. It's very thin. You don't need to remove a lot of dentine, but I think it's not that strong. You have to reach a certain level of file movement so you can grab this. You can grab the file. In this case, I didn't use it in I didn't use it in with a broken file in a canal. No, surprisingly, also, right? I saw a lot of weird things. This colleague referred this case to me with, you can see here, this is a broken instrument inside a perforation. This instrument is broken inside the bone. So when I remove I saw perforation. This is amalgam in a perforation. Look, after I clean the perforation, I start to remove the granulation tissue. This perforation was, I think, 5 months or 6 months old. Look, when I remove the granulation tissue, this is an instrument, a 35 H file inside the bone. This is inside the bone. So I could not do a troughing. It needs a grabbing mechanism. I can't do troughing inside the bone. So it needs a grabbing mechanism. What was best grabbing mechanism here? I tried the perforation. So I can see better. Then I insert the loop, the metal loop around the instrument. I push a button in the pen that make the loop come smaller and grip the instrument. Now look how I'm shaking while I'm pulling the instrument from the bone. That was a struggle. It's in real time, so you can feel the struggle I did. Now it's comes out. Look how long is the instrument, how deep it goes inside the bone. And this is the loop device I used. It's very nice technique, but as I said, the ligature wire is not that strong. And you can see the perforation here, and I found the canal that my friend was thinking it's the perforation. Then I closed the perforation with MTA, obturate the canal, and finish the case in single visit with all these mishaps. It have a lot of mishaps. It was having a perforation. It was having a transportation in the palatal canal. It's having a ledge in the mesial canal, and perforation with a broken instrument in the distal canal and mid-distal canal. That was a lot of problem. Now, this slide, it's not encouraging you for doing anything. Just an invitation to think, an invitation to explore your options. With the fourth choice, if you remember, we mentioned earlier that if we have a broken instrument, we can bypass, we can retrieve, non-surgical retrieval, or we can retrieve with surgery, or the damn choice. The last choice that we don't have to do is to leave it, to leave the instrument. Now, you have to try other option before you decide to take this option. You have to try to bypass. You have to refer if you don't have the equipment or the skills to retrieve, or to refer to a surgeon. You can there's a choice that you can leave the broken instrument, but there's a 5 criteria you have to take in consideration that tells you if you leave the broken instrument, that if the prognosis is favorable or not favorable. There's 5 criteria you have to consider, so you can make the decision that leaving the broken instrument will be favorable prognosis or not favorable prognosis. And I can take this choice. If the 5 criteria told you that it's not a favorable prognosis, so you have to take other options. Let's review this criteria. 1, the patient general health. If you're going to leave a broken instrument, you can rely very big deal on the host immunity or the patient immunity. So if someone is very old or have chronic disease or have a health risk, you can't take this choice. It will lower your chances of success. Second, the tooth condition. Of course, a sterile pulpitis, irreversible pulpitis tooth or a case is not like a chronic infected case. So if you have a vital pulp, it's very good. It's a good prognosis. Then you have infected pulp. The third criteria is the sequence of broken file. What mean? What if is the file that breaks is the first file you introduce to the canal, the 10K files, or is the last file in your shaping sequence? The later the broken file in your sequence, the better, because between files you do irrigation, you clean much of the infected dentine, you remove pulp tissue. But if it's the first file you use, then the canal didn't have any chance for cleaning. So the late the broken file in your sequence, in your shaping sequence, is the better. 4, the position of broken instrument. The more apically the broken the file breaks, the more favorable that, because you will have much space, much area of the canal will be cleaned. If you break the file chronally, then you have a lot of space in the canal you cannot clean. But if you break it apically, then you have a lot of space inside the canal that you can access and you can clean. So the more apically the broken file is, the more good prognosis you will have. 5, and the last criteria, is the obturation material you're going to use. If you're going to use you can obturate upon the file, you have to know that stainless steel or nickel titanium is not a good apical seal file. So you have to use, for better prognosis, you have to use a bioceramic material sealer or MTA for obturation. So let's have an example. I get this case with the first picture here. Of course, that's acute periapical acute periodontitis. Look, when I took working length, look at the sharp edge, almost 90 degrees, this sharp edge. Now my mistake is I reached 2504, but this is infected case. I need more cleaning, I need more cutting. Then I go with 3004 and it breaks at the angle of the curvature here in the third picture here. So look how it breaks at the angle of curvature. Now I couldn't see the file. I tried to bypass it, but I couldn't. It was impossible to bypass. And of course I tried to have a clear line access, but it's break beyond the curve, so I couldn't bypass or I couldn't retrieve. Then I apply the 5 criteria. 1, the patient is 14 years old boy, was very healthy. Second, the tooth is off. So first criteria is an okay. Second, the tooth condition. Of course, it was an infected tooth. So second criteria is no. Third, it was the last file in my sequence. It was 3004. So I clean with I do coronal flaring, then I irrigate. I go with 2004, then 2504, then 3004. So I do a lot of cleaning and irrigation while shaping. Third criteria is, fourth criteria is The broken instrument was at the apex. When I reach the reference point, the file separated. So it's exactly at the apex. So I have a lot of space and a lot of canal space to clean. The fifth criteria, of course, when I decide to optioid on the file, and then if it fails, I will go for surgery. So I close it with MTA here, or biostramic. I don't remember. I don't recall. Then I called the patient for follow-up and look after follow-up. Look how healing was. Look for the first picture preoperative and 1 year follow-up. The healing was very good around both two roots. So I don't need surgery. So it's not an invitation to leave the files. It's an invitation to explore your options. And do you know the prognosis? And you have to inform the patient. Still, you have to inform the patient, and you have to prepare for failure if there is a failure to go for surgery or referral. But when I apply my criteria to this case, I follow up the case, and if I fail, I will go for surgery, of course. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this webinar with me, and I am ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wael, for this wonderful lecture. I hope all our dentist friends learned a lot from you.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's see the questions. The first question.
From Sarah, I answered you, Sarah, in the last two slides. No, we can leave, but we have to try to bypass, try to retrieve or to refer. That's the best, the better option. And we have to inform the patient, and we have to prepare ourselves for failure. And we have to consider the 5 criteria that I said to try to predict if the prognosis will be favorable or not.
Okay, next question.
Is ultrasonic device, is it affect on thickness of precervical dentine? Look, precervical dentine is far more coronally. Look, the canal, the thickest part of the canal is the coronal part, and then the canal is go tapering, and the root go tapering. So the thickest part is at the coronal. So we prepare the canal from the thickest part. As I go further apically, I need to be more conservative. So if you're talking about the like the CRF retrieval instrument, I don't recommend it at the apical part because it's remove a lot of dentine. I may recommend ultrasonic retrieval, the 180-degree removal. That's more conservative. It's all about each case has its criteria. But mostly dentine don't pericervical dentine don't affect by retrieval. Look, you can use Dr. Bashar. You can use EDTA with bypass, but I don't recommend. I don't like to use it because prolonged exposure of EDTA to dentine to EDTA will somehow soften the dentine, make it like sticky. It will make it sticky. And while you bypass, the file can stick into the dentine, and it will making a ledge or perforation much easier. So that's why I don't recommend using EDTA with bypass, because prolonged exposure to EDTA will make the dentine soft and will make the bypass procedure much risky for error. We have broken file partially outside the apex. How to deal with it? It cannot be fully outside the canal. Yeah, look, Bashar, using XP finisher, it's not a rule. You look when you're using plate form, when you cut 2 millimeter, 2 to 3 millimeter, 100 degree, 180 degree inside the canal. When you use this method have researches. These methods have rules that if you did nearly 100%, you can it will work. But with XP finisher, it's more a sense, or it's a personal experience than a rule. You can use, it could help, but it's not guaranteed. It could not guarantee that the broken instrument will go out. It's not guaranteed that the XP finisher itself will break inside the bone. Nothing is guaranteed. I did it before. I did it before, and I retrieved the file. I did before, and I retrieved a gataberka from the bone to inside the canal. But I did it once, and I broke XP finisher inside bone. And the only thing that saved me is surgery. So it needs an experienced operator, and it needs an operator that can handle the failure, which is separation, or even pushing the file farther inside bone. So if you have an experience, you can handle failure. Anything you want to try, anything that you want to try in dentistry, you have to have 3 criteria. You have to be safe, don't harm the patient or harm yourself. You have to have a logical, a logic rule or a logic hypothesis around it. XP finisher with its movement and with its flexibility can create a vortex, a reverse vortex that can suck out the file. That's a good hypothesis. That's a good hypothesis. It's not a rule. It doesn't have any kind of rules that I could go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a good hypothesis. And third point, that if you want to try a new things in a new technique or a new thing in your clinic, you have to have the ability to handle failure. You have to ability. If you want to use this technique, to try out the technique, you have to be prepared for surgery. If it fails, you have to be prepared for surgery. And if the retrieval is too hard, should we wait, observe, and go for surgery? But look, you can't wait with an instrument outside the apex. It's have a not very good prognosis. It could pass, it could go with no problem, but I think I didn't see a broken instrument outside the apex and go, especially more than 2 millimeters, especially more than 2 millimeters outside the apex. Anything, even gataberka, could make a problem. So surgery, I think, if you cannot retrieve, surgery is a good choice in this case. Okay. Look, it's not Dr. Shelba. It's not about microscope. It's about you seeing. So if you have a loop of 5 or 6x, and the broken instrument is in the coronal part, you can see it, retrieve it. It's a rule, not a microscope. It's just a microscope that the device that can apply this rule. The rule is, if you can see, you can retrieve. The rule is, if you can see, you can retrieve. But the only thing, in my opinion, that you can see predictably is microscope. I know a very talented dentist that could make a lot of good retrieval with loops, but of course, no one with blind eyes, with naked eyes. But with loops, with X loops, they can do a lot of retrieval, but they cannot see clearly like microscope. It's all about sense. So they have some skills or some high emotions. They are very sensitive. But I couldn't do that. I graduated at 2006. My first retrieval was 2016, 10 years after my graduation, when I could afford, when I made my microscope. I made a device called handmade microscope that I'm working with since 2016. So I graduated 2006. I take my learning curve. When I have the good device, I start retrieving. So I don't recommend retrieving without microscope. With the best distribution preferred for broken file to pop out from the canal after trough. Olive oil or ETA? Look, they all work. They all work. I like EDTA. I like the popping up that I could, but I am in some cases the thrill and I need my will to remove this instrument just make me forget to secure other orifices. You have to secure other orifices with Teflon. Then I think EDTA will pop out. Olive oil will. Dr. Yushi said that olive oil is much better. Olive oil is make it more sliding. The sliding of the file is more easier. In my clinical experience, I used olive oil. I used baby oil. I used EDTA. I didn't feel much of a difference. If the file is dancing, it will come out. Beyond the apex, look, if you don't have the experience, you have to do CBCT to see if there is the whole file is beyond the apex, or if you have 2 to 3 millimeters inside the canal and you have a straight canal, there is a good chance with good experience, with good illumination, with a good device that you could remove it. If you go to my profile, my friend Dr. Muhammad Salah is a very good dentist of mine, and a very good friend of mine. He retrieved a broken instrument with 4 millimeter, with only I think 2 to 3 millimeter inside the canal, and the rest is outside the canal. So he made a good retrieval. He make a good retrieval, a very conservative retrieval with such a hard case. So it's doable, but it's all about your experience. It's all about your tools and what you can do. So everything is possible if you have the right tools and the right skills and the right experience. Yeah, it's much safer than outer. If you use its outer, you have a chance to have errors like ledge or perforation. In the inner wall, the broken instrument act as a shield from as the ultrasonic tip working its way through dentine. And if you go from the inner side, the outer side will act as a sliding part for the instrument to pop up. So it's very safe, and it's as I said, I work with Yushi style, and that's what Dr. Yushi said, and what Dr. Yushi is I think the only dentist in the world that have researches published at the GOE and more than one respectful journals about broken instrument retrieval. خلاص كده يا استاذ احمد ولا
لسه في there's another question.
Do bypass or remove should we fill the canal to broken file and preserve of 3 months. Look Dr. Bashar صح? You can do surgery anytime. So if you look for the 5 criteria I said, and you feel that it's favorable to it's going to be favorable prognosis, you can fill and then follow up for 6 months. The minimum follow-up criteria, especially in presence of radiolucency or a lesion, is 6 months. That you can see a considerable change in bone formation. 6 months, you will follow up for 6 months, and then 1 year. If 6 months there is a considerable change in bone formation, 1 year will be good, and that will be an assuring thing. If the lesion is at the same size, or there were no lesion and then become a lesion, then it's a failure and you go for apical surgery. Okay. Any other techniques for removing broken instrument when Ultrasonic alone does not work? Look, there's some techniques I didn't talk about because I think it's not solid yet, like the bypassing with rotary files. Dr. Yushi Taruchi talked about it in some of his lectures, that if after you bypass, you insert a Retrieval, go for counterclockwise in 150 RPM with a high torque. This Retrieval, when it moves slowly, like 150 RPM or even 100 RPM, and it will unscrew the broken instrument. When he go counterclockwise, the broken instrument will go counterclockwise also, or I think clockwise and then counterclockwise, and will unscrew the file and will go. Dr. Yushi has some videos on plastic blocks, but the technique is not solid yet, and I think it's very risky, and I want to be respectful. I think it's useless as you already bypassed the file. So there is a technique of removing broken instrument without ultrasonics, but you already bypass it. It's including one of its main steps. It's to bypass the file. So you bypass the file, then you don't have to retrieve.
Okay, looks like we have answered all the questions. So what do you think, Dr. Wael? What was the best question you have received?
I think there were all very good questions, I think.
But we only have to choose only one to win the prize.
I think Dr. Bashar Mugdad was a good question.
Okay, congratulations, Dr. Bashar. We will contact you, and Coxo will contact you to deliver your prize, which will be 3 SOCO files. Okay, and now thank you again, Dr. Wael, for your time, and thanks to all our dentists for participating in our video. Thank you, Dr. Wael.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank
you
all.
time.
Don't
thank
forget.
You.
Okay, we have all a great time. Don't forget to fill the form for the certificate. You will have it now in the comment. That's all for today. See you soon next week. Thank you. Goodbye, Dr. Wael.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye to all our dentists. Goodbye.